So, question in this video is, what can you do with the backing track for the Mile High Shred Guitar Contest, the chord and riff writing contest? So, real quick, the backing track that you'll be writing over is in the key of A minor or key of C, really the same thing because you're playing just the same 7 notes. So basically, you have your A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. Those are the notes that make up the key you're playing in. And there is a PDF and guitar profile that you will get once you sign up for the contest, so you can see what the bass line is, and that might be able to help some people out there, so you're able to, put in your ideas, tab out your stuff if you have Guitar Pro, or at least have something to look at to kind of help keep you on track of where you're at in the song or whatnot. But basically, I'm trying to get people to do more riff-based or chord-based writing instead of the typical thing that you hear in guitar contests. What do you hear? You hear what? A bunch of sweep picking? So we're trying to avoid that. We're not trying to have a bunch of this shit either. So none of the old widdly wazza. That shit is just going to be flat out not going to happen. So why? Why is that? It's because that's pretty much all the shit you hear in guitar contests that are done online. And, you go to any guitar competition, whatnot. What do? You do lead, solo. So I want to do something different here and try and inspire and get people motivated to focus more on the songwriting aspect, focus more on the emotional side of things in songwriting, not just flash. So let's talk about what you could do. So let's say you don't play that fast, but you like metal, you want to participate in this. What can you do? You can keep things really, really simple and just kind of be somewhat atmospheric about it and just kind of stick with basic chords. So you could do something simple like this. See, that wasn't anything really crazy. I wouldn't say that's crazy at all. Basically just using some basic chords, kind of playing around with the notes around that chord, and just trying to create some kind of melody, something that is enjoyable to listen to, enjoyable to play, things like that. So that's one approach. You could do a more chuggy approach and then kind of do the same thing where you play around with some notes around the chords that you're kind of basing your riffs off of. So like doing an A5 to an F5 is something I'm about to do here, and then kind of play around with some notes around those chords. And again, not trying to be flashy or anything, just keep it somewhat simple and try and have fun with it. Here we go. So something like this could also work. So again, I don't think it was anything too crazy, too flashy, whatnot. So all I'm doing is taking like a power chord that would be based on what the bass is playing, and then just kind of playing some notes around there. So that's another approach you can do. You can mix it, you can do both kind of things. You can, hit your chord there. So things like that can also work. You could be somewhat solo-ish in your riffs and be a little bit more fancy, a little more technical. That's fine, so long as it's not like a traditional guitar solo. And I know I did a bunch of like, widdly type stuff, but even things like this, not really what the contest is about. Like, oh, that's fun to do. That's definitely a guitar solo, and that's an example of what you don't want to do in this. So, what the hell am I talking about by be somewhat solo-y and riffy at the same time? Well, you can do some fast style picking. Can maybe pick along with the kick drum here. Things like that would be kind of cool to do too. So again, it's very chord and riff inspired. You can do arpeggio type stuff too. You can do arpeggios that don't necessarily have to be sweet picks and crazy solo-y type stuff. And these are just off-the-cuff ideas. I did not rehearse this stuff, so but this is kind of what you do when you write things, or you're writing over things like this. You just start messing around, throwing ideas out there, and then when you come across something that sticks, you're like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Then you keep kind of playing that idea over and over again. You might want to pause the backing track if when you take the backing track downloads that you get once you sign up for this, then you can put it in a program that allows you to loop a certain section over and over again, like Riff Station. That's one that I use. Or you put it in your DAW, your digital audio workstation, like Studio One, and yes, Pro Tools. But you loop a section over and over again. That's one thing you can do, and just kind of see what you come up with. So you can noodle around first, and that's what I do if I'm trying to come up with something. For a backing track or whatnot, if I'm trying to write for somebody, writing, if it is a solo, if it is a chord progression type stuff, the bass line is definitely helpful for me to have something loop over and over and over again, so I can kind of fiddle around with what's happening in the guitar chords, and then kind of see, well, what's really emphasizes what's being done on the guitars and the drums, and see what makes things sound even better. So kind of try that. So recap what we talked about in this video for approaching what you can or how you can write stuff for this backing track. You can keep it simple. You can be somewhat atmospheric and use big chords and play some notes that are around the chord shapes that you use. That's one thing you can do. You can make it more power chord oriented. Do some chuggy type stuff, but definitely want to do something a little more creative than just chug on power chords. So try and use some notes that are around that area. See what sounds good to you. And so another video is going to cover scales used in the key that we have here. So this way you can see what notes are being used in this key up and down the fretboard, in case you don't know all the scale shapes for the key of C. And then for more advanced players, you're absolutely welcome to do some more faster picking type stuff, and like emphasized kick drum type rhythms will make it a very power metal sounding thing. So those are just some things that you can do. Remember to avoid best you can, making it sound like just a typical guitar solo, and try and emphasize emotion and substance versus flashy, 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 flashy.